Good morning. God bless. Good morning. God bless. Good morning. God bless. What's going on, folks? We got Friday, May 29th. Aunt Crystal, what's up? Good morning. Love you. Love you. We're going to be live this morning. We're going to be talking about Minneapolis. We're going to be talking about rioting, why rioting happens. We're going to be talking about other methods of protest and fighting injustice. Our prayers go out to the citizens and the people in Minneapolis. Prayers go out to the family of George Floyd. And we demand justice. Until these officers are arrested, until these officers are behind bars, you're going to continue to have civil unrest in the streets. Good morning, y'all. What's up? Everybody comment. I want to know who's on this morning. Happy Friday. I want to know how you all are feeling. And I just want to know who I'm talking to this morning. We're going to have more of a conversation because I'm not going to go with a formal process this morning, a formal agenda that I typically go through. I will remind you all that the warm-up is about being motivated, encouraged to be your best self. Fridays, we typically talk about finances and Friday Fun Day. Though that normal agenda is being trumped, no pun intended, by what is going on in Minneapolis, and I just I feel the need to continue to speak on these matters. I know that my boy Mike Spann said he was going to jump on here on behalf of business owners and then talk about why he feels as though some forms of rioting and looting is excessive. That's fine. I invite him to talk about those things. But I'm going to share with you all just some thoughts that I've been sharing over the past 24 hours. And I'm going to read out some of my own quotes that led me up to even having this conversation today. Okay, I'm going to go back. Okay, here we go. Ever since, and because I knew this was going to happen, let me see. Okay. And because I knew that this was going to happen, I knew that people's energy was going to focus and turn towards the rioting. So I'm going to share with you all some of my feelings leading up to today, just by reading back to you some of the posts that I've shared since this story broke. So my very first post, when I learned about the story, let me see, hold on. Okay. Wow, it actually might be too bad. I've commented so much on this already. But right away, when I first heard the story, this is on the 26th at 1:53 p.m. I think is when I just heard the story, and ironically, I had just got done commenting about the situation in Central Park, and the woman called the police to kind of weaponize the police against the brother Christian Cooper in Central Park. So right after I had just commented about this, I learned about George Floyd being murdered by the police. And this was my very first comment. I said, and again, I'm sick of this shit. No way in the world would I ever trust the police. The officer needs to be sentenced for murder, and then everyone wants to act surprised when people riot and start fighting back. There is no peaceful march or protest that cops care about. We've been peaceful and protesting for decades, for hundreds of years, and they still do it. Being peaceful, and I said, even in my own encounter with police a few years ago, I was so fearful for my life, I could sense that the officer wanted to do me bodily harm. George Floyd was cuffed. He was cuffed. He was not in any way a threat. He was crying out for his mother and explaining that he couldn't breathe. There was an EMT on site. This whole holier than thou, we should care about businesses and not be violent towards objects when you have someone choking out the life of a person in broad daylight with his authority, with his uniform on. And these are the injustices that we talk about. I continued. I've been on this case. I said, until one of these officers are sentenced to the death penalty for these wrongful deaths or murders, they're going to keep killing us. That's what has to happen. These cops have to understand that the consequence for abusing your authority and wrongfully killing citizens is that you will be sentenced to life and or put to death. You can't just give somebody a license to kill. This officer had been formally complained against on 18 separate occasions, I heard on the news, and was never disciplined, not appropriately. He's killed other suspects or people who've committed crimes that the penalty for that crime was not death. On the 27th, first thing in the morning, what I said was, there is no wrong way to fight injustice. All hands on deck. All strategies on deck. Peaceful marches, letters to officials, riots if necessary. Become a vigilante. I don't care what you have to do to fight back. But whatever you choose to do not remain silent and scared. And then I emphasized how much black and brown people, how much we need to love one another in order to be strong and fight back. I continued. And this is my point. Let me see. So many points. This is my point about the riots. And Mike, if you want to talk about this in a few, I'm going to bring you on. But here's my point about the riots. Derek Chauvin, that's the name of the primary police officer that killed George Floyd. He is the one. He's the one responsible for the rioting and the looting. His actions are what caused breakout. It's a cause and effect. There are crimes committed every day. There are incidents in the public committed amongst each other every day. And the reason why you don't see people charging the streets and rioting and looting and going crazy when normal crime or everyday crime happens is because in those cases there isn't a party involved in the crime who is abusing their authority, who is committing the crime in the name of the U.S. government. That's where riots come from. Riots and looting are a direct response to civil unrest due to an abuse of authority by officers or governments. It's not just something that people just do because they're unhappy with the way life is. And that's the way that everyone tries to make it seem. Some people, I posted this 16 hours ago. Some people say, I can't believe that people would riot and be violent towards buildings. And I said, well, I can't believe the cops would be violent like that and kill a man in cold blood. Damn those buildings. They don't want people to care about buildings. The cops and the authority don't care about life, but they care to protect the buildings. The cops are so eager to line up by the thousands to protect the streets and the buildings, but not one or two officers could have just pulled the other officer off of George Floyd. They care more about those businesses and the economy, the local economy, than they do a black life. Damn those buildings. Damn those businesses. The protesters and the rioters, in my opinion, rightfully so, burned down Minneapolis Police Department. I think, and a lot of people who do get frustrated about where the rioters' anger gets, where the rioters' anger shows up. A lot of people get frustrated and they say, well, why don't they go after the appropriate municipalities, the police departments and the city hall and those things? And they do. And they do. And I know it's frustrating to see businesses get burned down, but I'm going to tell you why that happens in a second. I'm going to tell you why that happens in a second. One, I believe that rioting and looting works. I think it's part of the process. And you just take this, for instance, they hated us. They hated us for taking nonviolent kneel during the anthem of a sporting event. And that's why some people don't believe that peaceful protests work. When we peaceful protest, we got called sons of bitches by the president and were looked at to be enemies of the state for peaceful protest, for caring and crying out about black lives. And this is what happens, in my opinion. This is why, this is why rioting works. And I said this quote yesterday, and I said, I made this comment yesterday. I said, I bet once the charges are brought, the rioting and the looting will cease. It will stop. It will calm down. I'm going to tell you exactly why business owners have everything to do with it, Mike. I'm going to tell you why. Because rioting, as MLK would say, rioting and looting and civil unrest is the voice of the unheard. They cannot be heard. They don't have a voice. Those young people in the streets, people who are out there risking their lives on the front line, rioting and protesting and marching, they don't have a voice unless they show up in those ways. But do you know who does have a voice in communities? Business owners. And rioting and looting is an unorthodox method of forcing the hands of those voices. I said this. I bet once those charges are brought, the rioting and the looting will stop. You know who else will be calling on the police to get this case under control by tomorrow? Business owners. And why will business owners be calling on police and calling for this stuff to die down? It's because, one, business owners are valued voices of the community that may actually be heard. Law enforcement may actually listen to business owners. The courtrooms, the judges, the elected officials oftentimes have relationships with business owners. Business owners are highly valuable members of the community with a voice that can create change. But oftentimes that voice is not loud enough early enough. So when they see the businesses start burning down, they begin to speak up. They'll speak up because they're pissed about their business being burned down and they want order to return. Or they'll speak up because they're scared their business is next. They know the only way to prevent their business being next is for those officers to be arrested. There's a strange method to the madness of rioting, but this is the method. You force the hands of the most influential members of your community to step up as they should. And the only reason some of them step up and call for peace and justice and quick action is because they're afraid of the threat of their business being burned down. They're afraid that their business is going to get looted. So they step up and they say, hey guys, please hurry. Get this thing under control. Send those 4 officers to jail so that my business doesn't get torn down. Do what's right. This is why rioting is a method that does work. It forces business owner voices to come to the forefront, whether they like to or not. And here's the other thing. I hate to see businesses, small businesses get burned down, but these are buildings. A lot of these businesses have insurance. They're going to be fine. They're going to be fine. And here's the other thing about maybe how some businesses can avoid being looted. When incidents like this happen, businesses, small or big, need to stand up on behalf of the people, publicly, loudly. I would put a sign up on the side of my building that says, "I'm with George Floyd." I would put up a sign in front of my business that said that demand justice and that those officers are arrested. I would put a big giant sign on my building that says Black Lives Matter and I'm with you, so that maybe my building and my business would be bypassed. I would stand out front of my business and give out waters to the protesters and protect my establishment. So there are other methods. There are other methods of fighting for our civil rights and fighting for justice. And many of us, luckily, for whatever privileged reason, we don't find ourselves having to flee to the streets and throw tear gas and rocks and water bottles and riot. Many of us, for whatever reason, my audience anyway, we've been privileged enough or lucky enough where that is not our immediate course of action, right? As valued voices, right? Mike, as a business owner, you can call an elected official and get his ear and say, "Hey man, listen, this is what's going on. Why don't we try to do something about this?" As quote unquote educated folks, we understand different processes of enforcing legislation or promoting certain legislations to be changed in communities. But not everyone is as privileged as us. Not everyone is as patient or as calm as us. And their anger and their frustration is just as real as ours. So, I hear you, Mom. You think rioting is not the answer, but I think rioting is absolutely the answer. It's absolutely one of many answers. And before I bring Mike on, I want to remind you all, especially, do y'all believe, Mom, Mike, do y'all really believe that only nonviolent protests, prayers, and and peaceful marches is what got us to where we are today? Y'all believe that wholeheartedly? Y'all really believe that peaceful protests and nonviolence and turning the other cheek and just praying to the Lord is how we got out of chains? If peaceful protest and nonviolent action were our only course of fighting back, then we would still be in chains. We'd still be enslaved today, right now. You need the Nat Turners of the world. And they don't even tell us, you know, they make it seem like that was a one-off. I'm sure there were plenty of plantation uprising back then that needed to happen in order for us to be where we are right now. Both, all hands on deck. Some of us are going to write letters and some of us are going to take to the streets. And it's because that we have people that will take to the streets that those of us who write letters get listened to. It's because that it's because some of us have the ability to communicate in more civil ways. It will add to the jail population. And you know what? I appreciate those people for making a sacrifice. I appreciate those people for making a sacrifice. I got some articles I looked up, and essentially If it were not for riots in Birmingham, the Civil Rights Act wouldn't even exist. It wouldn't happen. We wouldn't even have the freedom to type in these messages that y'all are typing in right now. Robert Kennedy said that let me see. There was a declassified tape, and it shows that Robert Kennedy, a conversation between Robert Kennedy and John F. Kennedy. And it went like such. Robert Kennedy said that the Negro Reverend Walker has said that Negroes, when dark comes tonight, they are going to start going after policemen, headhunting, trying to shoot and kill policemen. This is during the Civil Rights Movement. He says it's completely out of hand. You could trigger off a good deal of violence around the country now, with Negroes saying they've been abused for all these years, and they are going to follow the ideas of the black Muslims now. This is Civil Rights Movement. If they feel, on the other hand, that the federal government is their friend, that it's intervening for them, that it's going to work for them, then it will head off some of that. I think that's the strongest argument for doing something. So Robert Kennedy is making the argument that in order to prevent the expansion of violent protests and riots, that we as the federal government need to be friends of the Negro. We need to intervene for them. We need to be a government that's going to work for them. He says, and then maybe that will calm down some of the unrest. He says he thinks that's the strongest argument for doing something. Right? John F. K. replied. He says, first we have to have law and order so that Negroes not running all over the city. So basically we got to have law and order so they're not out here rioting and looting. He says if the local Birmingham desegregation agreement blows up, the other remedy we have under the condition is to send legislation, the Civil Rights Act, up to Congress this week as our response, as a means of providing relief. We have to have legislation. So Mike, Donna, Mom, Mike, we don't even get civil rights. You're not even able to become a business owner, bro. If it wasn't for people that were able to riot and display civil unrest and loot in the street. But oh, it looks so bad when black people riot. Did you know that America was founded on riots? America was founded on riots. They got the riot to fight for this country, to steal it. From as far back as the days of tar and feather British tax collection, citizens have resisted power by fighting back, using fists when their voices weren't heard. During the Boston Tea Party, there were riots. That's how it worked. So I know that there are other methods of protest. I know that there are other methods for us to display our frustration and anger. But riots have historically played a role in American progress, whether you like to believe it or not. There are riots going back as early as 1863, and that had to do with the Civil War, right? People didn't want to go to war. They started rioting in the street because some people couldn't pay their way out. You had to pay $300. You could pay to avoid going to war. $300 back then was like $5,000, right? People rioted. Absurd. People rioted in 1999 in Seattle. The World Trade Organization Ministerial Conference in 1999 was scheduled to take place November 30th. 40,000 anti-globalization activists showed up to protest the meeting. And they shut it down and try to shut it down entirely. Protest And riots have always been a part of what it is that actually does help create some of the change. We wouldn't, and the sad thing is, these damn body cams don't even work as good as they should work because they still doing whatever they want. But if it wasn't for rioting and looting and protests, then there would not have been body cams. And the sad thing about that is, we just accepted the idea that body cams, they're not even mandatory in every state and every precinct. So y'all can miss me, and I would love to have a conversation. Mike, I said I would bring you on if you're still listening, bro. Let me see. I'll bring you on. I don't see you on here. Let's see if I can find you there. Okay, I tried to add Mike. We'll see if he is a business owner. I know he has a voice, and that he's as upset about what happened to George Floyd as Brother Mike.
What's going on?
What's up, man? So Mike, man, thank you for joining. Thank you for joining, bro. I know that we've been going back and forth about this since yesterday. And first and foremost, for everybody that's listening, this is Mike. We go way back. Mike, I want you to tell everybody the kind of business that you, kind of business owner that you are, and what you do, and what me and Mike are not. We're not in disagreement about the fact that people need to do something and stand up and fight back in numerous. Wants to speak about, and I'm gonna give him the floor. Wants to speak about violent protests, in particular, looting towards small businesses. That, you know, and I'll let him go from there. But to small businesses and how that may impact and hurt the local economy and small business owners. I've made my point pretty clear, but there's we could have a healthy discussion about it. So, Mike, man, go ahead. You got the floor, brother.
What's going on, people? I'm a small business owner. I do sales and marketing, and I recently just started a new company during this pandemic, which everything's on hold, obviously. I feel like the energy should be directed towards the police and not these local businesses. They're already getting affected tremendously through this pandemic already right now. And for them to, their businesses to get already on hold. But for their businesses to get destroyed and people are just looting and destroying the business even more than what the economy and this whole pandemic situation is already doing, I feel like it's not right. I feel like if they have any, everybody pissed off. But at the same time, we're taking it out on each other that are supporting each other. It doesn't make sense. If you want to, you have a feeling towards these police, then you take that to the police department. You don't take it out on these local businesses. And that's where I stand. At the end of the day, regardless of me being a business owner or not, I don't have to be a business owner to know right from wrong. And destroying what these people work for their entire lives over another person's anger for something that somebody else did is not right.
Yeah. Okay, I hear you. Do you feel that business owners get more respect in the community than non-business owners?
I mean, from authorities, yeah, but maybe not from the people.
Well, here's the thing. point that I think I'm getting with this. Do you understand that some people's voices, like yours, or maybe even like mine, may be heard, and that the voices of the people who are angry and rioting and looting, their voices are oftentimes unheard?
Yeah, I can definitely understand where we have a stronger platform where we're able to voice out, have a stronger voice. I definitely can understand that, but at the same time, there's other ways to be heard.
We
Like
agree on those. We agree on those other ways.
but my problem is destroying these local businesses. I don't even really care about Target and stuff because those places do have insurance that cover, but most of these small businesses they don't. They don't even have insurance that will cover through this pandemic. We're getting zero help from the government. We're not getting any help. It's these big businesses that are getting help. So
Well,
we're
I would like to see when everything comes out in Minneapolis. I don't know exactly how many small businesses were destroyed. I noticed that there was a Target, a AutoZone, and some other reputable name places that definitely have insurance in place.
they're big corporations though. They can handle that.
Exactly. That's what I'm saying. That I don't know how many small businesses during the unrest were destroyed. From what I've seen on TV, it looked like many of the buildings that were burning were the more reputable businesses.
No, they're tearing up everything. That's because the media is only they're only viewing well because the people know those type of stories. So that is what's going to draw viewers. But they're burning up everything. If your business right next to Target and you have Walmart in between it, you think they're going to skip your business to go over to Walmart? No, they burning your business down too.
And so for those people, okay with them burning down the police departments and the municipality buildings, but just not business.
Well, I don't support it, but I understand. I don't support any of that violence, but I
Why
understand.
not?
I understand the frustration. I understand the anger. I understand the angle.
Why do you not support any violent response
Well, not towards this.
of any sort?
I can understand violence towards the police department. I definitely can understand that. I definitely can understand even the story that called the cops on. I can understand that. But like these businesses that doesn't have anything to do with it, I can't support that.
If you were a business owner in that community and you had a brick and mortar store, what would you have done after hearing about George Floyd?
Um, I would be more active. Um, but there's business owners that was active. They was out there protesting with them, and their business got burned down and looted. Why they're out supporting? They're out supporting and protesting, and their business got burned down.
Yeah, I think that as business owners and voices of the community, they need to be, if I'm a business owner, they need to be loud and vocal immediately to display a sense of support for the protesters and the rioters, and that hopefully their store wouldn't fall subject to the anger. But you're right. If it's next to a Target or next to one of these big stores, the fires are going to carry over, and there's nothing you can really do about that. I don't know, Mike. We gotta agree to disagree, brother. I understand that people are scared, and that what happens is when we have looting and we have riots and we have violence, they call in the National Guard and they start shooting people. That's what ends up happening. But what also happens is it forces or accelerates action to take. Minneapolis is not going to let their city burn down. Minnesota's not going to let the city of Minneapolis burn down. The government's not going to let the whole city burn down. And when these riots and stuff like this get out of control, usually action takes place. I believe that because these riots are taking place, that we might actually see charges on these men at the top of next week. I think if people just sat by peacefully and didn't do nothing, who knows? We might not get charges for months. What is the perceived result of it? I'm reading the question. What is the perceived result expected as an end result of the violence? Who are you trying to cause pain? It's one, when I'll answer your question. When people are hurt, they want everyone to feel that pain equally. They want people to feel that pain to the greatest extent. And sometimes by lashing out on inanimate objects, mind you, sometimes lashing out on inanimate objects, mind you, will make people realize that hurt and pain that they may not have noticed, or they may not have cared about, or, you know, and that is going to force, like I said, that is going to force that business owner, that valued voice, to speak up, to come to the forefront. It forces the Mikes and the other business owners of the world to say, hey, y'all do something about this before they burn down my damn business. But if not for that threat, the business owners won't step up. Not in that way, not that passionately. It's an emotional pain, Donald, because these are buildings. These are people who are going to come back to their businesses. They're going to be hurt. They're going to be upset. But if they're honest with themselves, they know that Derek Chauvin and the Minneapolis Police Department are at root and the cause of the rioting and the looting. They understand that. Everybody understands that. And so the next time something happens, if my business survives the first time, the next time something happens, I'm going to be the first one out there, right? Because, hey, hurry up, get this under control. If y'all don't, they're going to start looting tonight. And my voice is valued because I'm a business owner. That's the method to the madness. It's not that should be our number one solution. It's just that some people aren't as well resourced or as knowledgeable as us. Yesterday, Mike, you said that I was too educated to be promoting looting and violence and rioting. And no, I'm just too educated myself because I've been to express my frustration. But what about people who aren't as blessed and opportunistic as me? What about people who aren't as connected as me? I can talk to elected officials. I have a good friend who's very high-ranking elected official in the state of Pennsylvania. I know governors and mayors. You know, I'm lucky to be able to call folks and say, hey, what are y'all going to do about this? And write letters and push people. But what about Joe Schmo? What about just everyday people that got to walk around the streets of Minneapolis scared of their police force? They don't have the power that my voice has. So they lash out in anger. And what it does is it forces people with more powerful voices to take action. That's how it happens. Well, let me ask you this, Mike. So, because I don't want to beat you up. This isn't a beat up Mike thing. What other ways, bro, and this is genuine, you're not for the violence, you know?
What about towards
the violence against the businesses, right? But what other suggestions? What are suggestions? Like if people have inboxed me, you know, white people have inboxed me, support, what can I do? You know, I've had older people inbox me just upset. What can I do? What course of action can I do to show that I support and stand by George Floyd? What suggestions do you have for people who might be looking for other ways to handle their frustration and anger other than violence?
Well, I believe it's a community thing. We have to do it collectively. But at the same time, the stronger voices will be heard faster and stronger. At the end of the day, those stronger voices need to step up and speak on this matter. And these officers prosecuted and should be waiting in jail until the trial is up, just like a normal person. If one of us, this happened to one of us, and we're, our video's out, not even our video, it don't even have to be our videos. They can just think that we murdered somebody. We'll be in jail right now.
Yep. Yep.
So I want the same action.
Well, so here's and I've been thinking about this last night, Mike, and I'm gonna let you go. But I've been thinking about this since last night. And as a business owner, I think this is something that you all could do. I think most businesses, most local businesses are connected with their local chamber of commerce, if I'm correct. That's usually how that works. The local chamber of commerce is an extremely powerful voice in all counties. When these kind of things happen, I think that the chamber that represents business owners needs to step up and be one of the first and most visible voices on the front line of fighting for justice in these communities. Because these business owners are supposed to have an intimate, healthy relationship with the members of their communities. Just as much, these business owners will be able to be successful, keep food on their table, and be who they are without the members of their communities. So when the members of their communities are hurting, the business owners, the Chamber of Commerce, need to step up and be loud and extremely vocal. I'm going to go back after this, after we hang up today, and I'm going to look and see if the Minneapolis Chamber of Commerce has stepped up and made a comment about calling for justice on those officers. Because they can't be more outraged about buildings than they are about Black lives. It doesn't work like that. But thank you, bro. I appreciate you. Definitely, bro. That's Mike, y'all, from one business owner to another. I mean, to all of you other business owners, Mike is just encouraging you all to think of other methods.
Appreciate it. Have a good day.
No doubt, bro. I appreciate that.
All right, take it easy,
bro. All right, I think Mike is disconnected now. Okay, can you all hear me? All right. Finished up with Mike. And man, I've been going back and forth with people. And it's a lot of people that I've seen, who were, in my opinion, more outraged about the rioting and the looting than they were about the George Floyd thing. And that was grinding my gears. I mean, I think that was driving me up a wall. Those buildings and those business owners, they have insurance. Hopefully and prayerfully they'll bounce back, and hopefully and prayerfully no one was injured in any of those buildings. But they're just buildings. They're just inanimate objects. Like I said, if I had a building, if I had a store in Minneapolis, I'd be right out front of my store supporting the rioters and the looters. I'd be giving out resources, water bottles, food, face masks, anything to help the cause as a business owner. That's what I would do, because I know that, because as a business owner, you should know that this is the community that you need to also protect. So I'm going to look into what the Chamber of Commerce is doing in Minneapolis, and I'm definitely call on them to step up on behalf of all business owners to call for justice and the arrest of those officers. Y'all have to understand that it's an all hands on deck time. It's a by any means necessary kind of time. And we're going to have people that take to the streets. We're going to have people that become police officers and try to infiltrate and do good from the inside. We're going to have people that become elected officials and judges and try to change laws. Right? We're going to have all of that. We need all of that. And the infighting and the judging each other. And I've seen black people I seen black people online calling looters ignorant niggas and that all kind of stuff. That, to me, I don't know who you're trying to impress. I don't know. If you're black and you're online talking about we shouldn't loot and this bad and two wrongs don't make a right and two steps back, I don't know who you're trying to impress. But you're not angry enough for me. That's how I feel about it. I've had a hard time sleeping. And all I can do is express myself through social media, virtually, send letters. Imagine being a part of that community. Imagine if this happened right at home. I didn't live in Baltimore when Freddie Gray happened, but I live in Baltimore now. I would have been in the street. If this was at home and this would have happened to somewhere local in Camden County, Gloucester County, I'm in the street. This is my home. I don't know, y'all. I'll tell you this much. If you're more outraged about rioting and looting than you are about that man being killed by the police, then I don't know what to tell you. You got it all wrong. You're on the wrong side of history. I said the other day, we need the Hueys, the Malcolms, the Martins, and the Baracks of the world. We need all of that. I love y'all. I really do. And thank y'all for listening. But for many of you who may not understood the purpose of rioting or the method of the madness to rioting or looting, I hope y'all understand it now. That rioting and looting pushes the more influential voices in the communities to step up and demand action. That's how it works. That's why it happens. Had it not been for rioting, there is no founding of America. Had it not been for rioting, there is no civil rights movement. Had it not been for rioting, there is no body cams. Native Americans rioted. You're not just going to sit back and watch your brothers and sisters get killed with the support or using methods of the government. It's sickening. It is absolutely sickening. So, y'all want to know when is rioting the answer? It's when your government is attacking you. That's the answer. That's the answer. That's when rioting is the answer. My hearts and prayers really go out to the citizens and the folks in Minneapolis. I noticed that the president's first comments on the George Michael killing was really in response to the looting and the rioting, because that's really what he cares about. He really wanted to call people thugs. He's got the authority now to demand that the National Guard go in, and what he said was, when the looting starts, the shooting starts. Donald Trump has basically threatened the protesters and the rioters and the folks of Minneapolis. And that right there is a disgrace to me. He didn't say, we're going to send in the National Guard to keep the peace. He said, we're going to send in the National Guard to shoot people that loot. You see the difference? When the protesters stormed the Capitol in Michigan with guns, and if that doesn't look threatening, I don't know what does. I'm more afraid of a militia of protesters storming the Capitol with guns than I am of people with rocks throwing rocks at glass windows. He called them very good people. He did. He called them, some very good people. And they were met with peace. They were met with peace. The officers didn't flinch. No tear gas. No flashbangs. No nightsticks. They just got to go up to Michigan and shut the shit down with their guns. We march in the street, we get tear gassed. We kneel, we're pieces of shit. So what would you rather do? You would rather just be silent when they're going to kill you anyway? When they're going to talk dirty about you anyway? At this point, I probably would resist arrest because y'all gonna kill me anyway. I'm trying to get the hell out of here. So just keep all of that in mind. I really don't want looting and rioting to be the go-to method. But it is what it is. And the reality is, the only reason there are nonviolent civil protests and the letters that we write and the committee meetings that we go to, the only reason any of that shit works is because they're scared that the riots will continue. Robert Kennedy and John F. Kennedy told you right there. Hell, if we don't stop, they're going to start killing police officers all over the country if we don't figure out a way to actually advocate on and protect black and brown people. And boom, all of it. Then we get legislation. We had to have, did y'all forget we had to have a civil war? If that's not a riot, then what is? A civil war, if that's not rioting and looting and pillaging and violence at the max for justice, for what's right, then I don't know what is. You don't get the Emancipation Proclamation without violence. You don't get the Civil Rights Act without violence. And we're not going to get criminal justice reform and police reform in this country without some violence being a part of the recipe. Dwight, I don't have any time to discuss looting. I could care less about a TV being taken out of a Target. It's not, and the reality is rioting is reactive. The rioting is reactive, and it's unfortunate. But because it's reactive, don't ever forget the root cause of why people are rioting and looting. If they don't care about taking a life, you think I should care about somebody taking a TV out of a store? You see how the two don't even compare? And yet, people still feel a sense of hurt and pain and anger when they look at a store and they see it, and they see that their valuables have been taken out from the store. Right now, all of a sudden, oh, it hurts. When you weren't at home, broken up and hurt and crying, when you seen a man get killed in the street, but you go to your store and it's been looted and now you're hurting and crying? No. You got insurance. Those business owners would be good. It's unfortunate, but it is what it is. It's a necessary part of the puzzle. If we don't have our foot soldiers and we don't have people willing to step up in that way, then people like me would never be listened to. It's hard being black in America, but we ain't gonna be scared in America. I'll tell you that much. So I love y'all, and y'all can save me with the Good Black Guy Act, and it's a step back, and it's not doing anything, and it's reactive, and y'all look like niggas, and it's opportunistic, and X, Y, and Z. Well, that cop looked like a nigga to me when he was killing a black man in the street. So y'all can miss me with that peaceful stuff. Because personally, and luckily, I've been blessed enough that I have the capabilities and the opportunities to participate in nonviolent protests. But not everybody is as fortunate and lucky as I am. And I'm so grateful for those people stepping up and expressing their pain in whichever way that they can. Rioting, protest, same thing to me. It's necessary. The peaceful protesters don't get heard if the rioters don't exist. You know what happens when they start to cover the riots? You know what happens when they start to cover the riots and they see all the people out there looting and going crazy? They try to find the peaceful people to talk to. And so, now, my voice is getting on the news because I'm not out here acting a fool. But if it wasn't for everybody else out here around me acting a fool, y'all wouldn't have stopped and interviewed me because I wanted to be civil. So like I said, the looting and the rioting will continue until those officers are brought to justice. But I am scared at this point. I am scared going into day 3 or day 4 in Minneapolis. I'm scared for your lives. The president he's sending in the government. They're sending in the government. They're sending in the National Guard. And so basically they're going to declare war on the people in Minneapolis in the street. And so y'all be smart. Be smart. I think after 3 days of looting and rioting in the street, that what we don't want you all to do is rush out into the street and get killed by the National Guard or the military. So I believe that to my brothers and sisters in Minneapolis, for those of you who have rioted and looted, we see you, we hear you, they see you, and they hear you. You got their attention. Don't get yourselves killed. We need you for the long haul. That's it. That's all I got. I love y'all. God bless. Please share. Please share. I'm out.